SCP-2894 Phantom Island. Object Class Neutralized. Neutralized SCPs are SCPs of which the anomalous properties are no longer displayed. Special Containment Procedures. Remaining public records of the existence of SCP-2894 have been successfully discredited as volcanic pumice rafts as per Disinformation Protocol 2894-34A. No special containment procedures are necessary at this time. Description: SCP-2894 is a non-existent island located in the French territory of New Caledonia at coordinates 19.22 degrees south, 159.93 degrees east. Records of SCP-2894's existence date back to 1774, when the island was first charted by Captain James Cook. The next public record of 2894 dates to 1876, when the whaling vessel Velocity encountered the island. At that time, the island was surrounded by a wide beach, thus given the name Sandy Island. According to all available physical evidence, SCP-2894 does not exist and has never existed. Information pertaining to SCP-2894 is widespread, although the most sensitive data exists only in the Foundation database, as far as we are aware. Addendum 2894-1. Transcript of recovered document from Foundation database. 14% data corruption. Origin of document currently untraceable. Warning: the following document is restricted to Level 3 or higher access. Please input credentials. Credentials accepted. SCP-3 here. Object Class Keter. Special Containment Procedures. All attempts to seal or otherwise neutralize SCP-3 here have proven ineffective. Implementation of procedure Metatron 13 is now authorized. Description: SCP-3 here is an interdimensional anomaly located in an undersea cave system in the base of Innes Island, New Caledonia. Coordinates redacted. A spatial aperture within the cave levels of the floor of an extraterrestrial ocean suspected to be water is currently flowing through the aperture from the other side at a rate of 1,000 cubic meters per second. The water originating on the far side of the aperture is non-anomalous and contains no trace of biological life, although its mean temperature is 9 degrees cooler than the ocean surrounding the island. Timeline of SCP-3 here discovery and attempted containment procedures. Time reference: 1964. Remarks: oceanographers report temperature anomalies in the region of New Caledonia. Embedded Foundation operatives begin investigation when no natural cause seems plausible. Time reference: September 1964. Foundation oceanographers isolate source of anomaly at Innes Island. Containment perimeter established. At this point, the flow rate of SCP-3 here is stable at approximately 1,000 cubic meters per second. Plans for exploration begin. Time reference: January 1967. A specialized robotic probe is deployed to explore the anomaly. Despite the heavily modified, redacted, turbine engines it is equipped with, the probe is unable to overcome the pressurized outflow and fails to enter the anomaly. Time reference: May 1960. Remarks: global sea level rise caused by SCP-3 here is noted by scientists worldwide. Disinformation Protocol is instituted to exaggerate the effects of climate change-induced ice melting to account for the discrepancy. Attempted neutralization of SCP Year 3 here discussed, but tabled until more information can be acquired. Time reference: September 1971. A second robotic probe is completed and deployed to explore SCP Year 3 here. The probe succeeds in entering the anomaly, but it is immediately destroyed. Analysis of the probe's sensor telemetry indicates it was crushed by the oceanic pressure in excess of the megapascals. Ocean depth beyond the anomaly estimated at least 30,500 meters. Projections indicate that the pressure differential between the opposite side of SCP Year 3 here and Earth's oceans will not equalize until all land on Earth is submerged under at least 1,000 meters of water. SCP Year 3 here upgraded to Keter classification. Attempts at neutralization authorized by O5 Council. November 1974. Foundation engineers attempt to seal SCP Year 3 here with 600,000 metric tons of redacted alloy obtained via data expunged. Procedure is seemingly effective. February 1975. The seal on SCP Year 3 here explosively fails, releasing over million. There's not 1,100 cubic meters within seconds. Site Year 3 here, and all personnel currently stationed there are lost. A tsunami is triggered, causing heavy property damage to areas in Australia and New Zealand. The disinformation campaign successfully attributed the event to an earthquake. March 1975. Containment of SCP Year 3 here re-established. Containment failure analyzed and attributed to mounting pressure exceeding the seal's structural tolerance. Flow rate of the anomaly is now increased to 1,000 cubic meters. July 1977. All further attempts to neutralize SCP Year 3 here have met with failure. Global sea level rise has completely inundated the Netherlands, Bangladesh, and many other low-lying territories. Plausibility of climate change cover story increasingly called into question by global media. March 1979. A series of megaton thermonuclear demolition charges are fired into SCP Year 3 here with the use of supercaptivating subsurface electromagnetic accelerator cannon. Note: no such device is currently known to the Foundation. In an attempt to collapse the passage from the other side, the warheads cross the dimensional threshold and detonate, but only serve to exacerbate the problem. Flow rate increases to the current value of 500,000 cubic meters per second. April 1979. Radioactive contamination due to failed neutralization attempt is widespread across the Pacific Ocean. Sea level rise now exceeds projected maximum of total worldwide glacial mating by 0.5%. The nature of SCP Year 3 here remains unknown to the general public, but its widespread effects can no longer be plausibly explained. April 1981. Global sea level now exceeds over 187 meters. 0% of Earth's former land area is now submerged. Enactment of Procedure Metatron 13 authorized by O5 Council. Addendum 2894-2. The following document was discovered in a highly encrypted sector of the Foundation database. The following is a heuristic analysis recovery of the document with approximately 57% data corruption. Estimated accuracy of this document is 85%. Warning: access to this document requires Level 5 authorization. Unauthorized access is punishable by immediate termination. Input O5 authorization. Does the black moon howl? Authorization accepted. Item number: SCP. Object class: Thaumiel. Special containment procedures: SCP is to be at the Mary Research Facility located in knowledge of SCP existence must remain limited to members and the O5 Council. SCP is not to be activated without unanimous approval from the O5 Council. SCP is the designation of the most advanced prototype device yet developed by Project Metatron. No such Foundation project exists. Project Metatron was initiated in 1939 and the Foundation's Temporal Research Department with the intention of developing a means to otherwise uncontainable Keter class from the space-time continuum, utilizing resources obtained from an SCP combined with categorized anomalous and theories crafted by Dr. See Foundation Research Journal. The identity of this document cannot be ascertained due to data loss. A time scalpel was created, capable of partially physical objects, locations. Initial research concluded that not be 100% effective. If a target were totally removed from space, never have any reason to use SCP on target. Help. Recursive paradoxical loop. Therefore, it was order for SCP to be able to fulfill its intended function. Evidence of the target's always remain after its removal. As SCP was primarily created to physical anomalies, experimental procedures have applied shift the probability vector of remnant towards information as evidence. In addition, simulates indicate a likelihood that SCP will erase itself along with its target, as well as causal collateral damage. Research to fix these flaws is ongoing. Addendum -1 on O5 requested deployment of SCP for the purpose of neutralizing SCP here 3 here. Response from Product Metatron Site Director: please, I beg of you to reconsider. Fully aware of the threat posed by SCP here 3 here. Project Metatron is far from complete. Called for a scalpel prototype akin to a sledgehammer. Imagine heavy pane of glass. Destroy the part you hit. Also create a pattern of cracks across the glass and compromise its overall structural integrity. Worst case scenario, the entire space-time continuum anomaly is successfully terminated. Can't predict who or what might be along with it. Instability of space-like trajectories. Please help. Of local light cones. Foundation might cease to exist. I'm stuck. Pro other Keter of anomalies. Breached history altered completely. Anticipate that large amounts of data deleted from Foundation database, leading to the irrecoverable loss of vital information can't be found anymore. SCP files, records aided and unrelated to Project Metatron and SCP here 3 here exists in a fragmentary state after I must insist we please refine SCP before initial deployment. From 05 to Project Metatron Site Director have no more time. SCP here 3 here must be stopped if human survive. The O5 Council their unanimous approval. Enact Procedure Metatron 13.